Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days in today's video. We'll also have a look at the CFS V2 for the next month. That takes us into the middle of December. And we'll start off having a look at the stratosphere, see what's happening in terms of those stratospheric temperatures over North Pole. So quite a lot to get through today. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages. If you have a browse through widgets and click through the links, you'll be helping us to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads, most pages. They own their content when you watch them, they close back up again. Does help to pay for gas ovens. And the Christmas shop remains open, been a huge success again. So big thank you to everybody who has done their Christmas shopping in the Christmas shop over the past few weeks. We started on the 1st of November. Still plenty of time to get Christmas shopping out to you. So if you want to do any Christmas shopping at Amazon between now and Christmas, just click the green button that says Christmas shop, and then you go to our Christmas page, and from there you click through the Amazon banners. It takes you to Amazon where you do Christmas shopping as normal, because you've gone from Gazlovids to Amazon where you get a revenue fee on the items that you're buying. And a big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, we'll start off having a look at the temperature in the stratosphere over North Pole. Then remember, this is the top layer of the atmosphere. It's above the troposphere where weather is taking place. When the stratosphere is cold, it tends to coincide with a strengthened and enhanced polar vortex, and that increases the westerlies. So a cold stratosphere over North Pole will tend to go along for us with milder Atlantic-driven weather, whereas a warmer temperature over the pole in the stratosphere tends to coincide with more block conditions, and blocking is normally our route to colder weather. Doesn't guarantee anything because the main factor is where that blocking is sitting, but certainly you can't get sustained cold weather without some level of blocking. So on this chart, this is the stratospheric temperature for 30 HPA, not quite the top level of the stratosphere, but pretty high up. We can see the red line here is the trend line, and the black line is where those stratospheric temperatures have been and currently are. So we're in a cooling time of year now, of course. We're going into winter, the coldest time generally around early January, and then those stratospheric temperatures trend upwards as we go through the remainder of winter into spring, reaching their peak in the summer. The black line shows that I've been trending very much close to average so far, so no dramatic cooling in terms of those stratospheric temperatures, at least to this point in the year, just remaining very, very close to the grey trend line. Few minor warmings have also been taking place. That no doubt has been putting pressure on the polar vortex. We have seen a slightly weakened polar vortex over the past few weeks. In fact, quite a substantially weakened polar vortex compared to the past 2 or 3 years at around this time of year. Currently, we are cooling those stratospheric temperatures down, but we're still a little bit above average, and there's no sign that we're going to get a plunge in the temperatures, and there's no sign that we're going to do something like that, which is a sort of level we've been over the past 3 winters when we have very mild Atlantic-driven winters. So I would expect temperatures to be hovering around this level in the stratosphere over North Pole for the next week or two, and maybe some more minor warmings can't be ruled out as well. There's no sign of a sudden stratospheric warming yet, which is where we'll shoot that black line up to around there. No sign of that, but I would suspect we'll have further sort of peaks upwards like this in the coming few weeks, and that will continue, I would have thought, to put pressure on the polar vortex. Eventually, by the time we get through to the middle of winter, we might get a sudden stratospheric warming. I think the conditions are more ideal for that this year compared to any year that we've seen since 2012-2013, our last cold winter. So this is how the GFS is forecasting those stratospheric temperatures to go over the next week or two. This is starting on the 30th of November. That's the North Pole there, of course, where the stratospheric temperatures are cold because it's cooling time of year. We're into winter, so they're fairly cold, but nothing overly dramatic in terms of those blue colours. Keep an eye on this yellow area over Siberian Russia. That's trying to bring warming into the pole. As we run into the start of December, you'll see those yellow colours do intensify and begin to push further in towards the North Pole. and that continues then through the first week of the month. We end up on the 8th of December, as far as we can go, with the GFS seeing quite a pronounced warming for so early in the season. Not a sudden stratospheric warming, but it's quite a pronounced warming taking place across Siberia. And again, that is trying to penetrate in towards the North Pole. So the polar vortex is being put under more and more pressure very early on in the season, of course. So I reckon we'll continue to see the polar vortex being disrupted over the next few weeks. Doesn't rule out periods of Atlantic-driven weather, of course, but I think the polar vortex will continue to be quite disruptive, quite weakened compared to previous winters, and I would have thought we are seeing the potential, at least, for a sudden stratospheric warming later on in the winter. So how does all this play out in terms of the weather? These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average. Temperature is actually going to be a bit above average through the next week or so, but it is associated with high pressure. So in terms of precipitation, we see that there's a lot of dry weather coming up for the remainder of November. 1st of December is just here. And although the temperatures in the upper atmosphere are going to be a little bit above average, as we can see just here, down on the surface it will be cooler, especially at night where we have a risk of frost and fog. And if that fog lingers into the day, there will be the chance of having quite cold conditions through the next few days. Now we go through to the second half of the chart, so from the 1st of December just here, which is in the extended range of the GFS model, so it's in the unreliable period, but you'll see there's a huge amount of scatter still there in terms of what's going to happen through that first week of December. Overall, we are bringing the rainfall spikes back, so it looks like it's turning more unsettled. And whilst we have got these colder ensemble members, I suspect we may go through a period of more Atlantic-driven conditions through the first week or so of December. So maybe milder, maybe a little bit more Atlantic-driven through that earlier part of December. Although, whilst there's so many cold members of the GFS ensembles, as we see here, we can't rule out the prospect that the first week of December will be quite cold. But I think it's probably fairly low risk of that, and I would have thought a milder Atlantic-driven first week looks more likely. Temperature anomalies through the coming week, from the 22nd through the 30th of November, more or less cold on average. It's near normal in the far south, but most parts of the country coming out cold on average, which just tells you that although the upper air temperatures are fairly mild with the high pressure, down on the surface we will have frost and fog concerns. Lots of dry weather and that high pressure as well. So after yesterday's deluge, we're going to have drier conditions for the next week, the final week of November. This is how the GFS is looking then for Saturday. High pressure through the country, as we know. That could bring frost and fog, particularly central northern parts. The south is still at risk of cloud and easterly winds, keeping the temperatures up a little bit there. We go through to Sunday, high pressure dominating. That takes us into Monday as well. I think the risk of frost and fog will probably increase over the weekend into the start of next week as well. Into Tuesday, a week away, we've got high pressure trying to get into Scandinavia, trying to bring the winds in from the east. There's a lot of cold air coming around the back of the high into eastern parts of Europe. I don't think we'll quite tap into that, because it looks like the high pressure is actually sinking towards the Black Sea by the 30th of November as the Atlantic influence begins to increase just a little bit. And then we go through into the start of December. So this is the 1st of December. This is day 10, Friday, 2nd of December, when it looks like we're bringing in a milder westerly flow there. Of course, the models might be breaking down the high pressure too quickly. So at this point, where the high pressure is in over Scandinavia, don't rule out the chance that high pressure could stick close to Scandinavia more than the model is suggesting. It might be pushing it down towards the Black Sea too quickly. If it is, then we'll have a colder first week of December. The Eastern Earth is very similar. There's high pressure in over country for the weekend. Lots of quiet weather, frost and fog in the north. Then early next week, that high pressure gets up to Scandinavia. There it goes. And got cold air again coming around the back of the high into eastern parts of Europe. those are the upper air temperatures showing how cold it's going to get into the east of Europe and down into the southeast as well. Cold, snowy conditions into much of central eastern Europe through the middle part of next week, around the back of that high. By Wednesday, that high pressure beginning to sink down. Again, we've got cold air to the south and the east of the high. So once again, upper air temperatures showing the extent of that cold pool across eastern Europe. And if this high pressure is being broken down too quickly, if these westerlies are coming in around the top of the high too quickly, then we could conceivably start to pull this colder air into Western Europe. So that's why I'm just a bit unsure about this first week of December. I think it's trending to a milder, more Atlantic-driven first week of December. But the models do tend to break down high pressure too quickly. They might be moving that high pressure out of Scandinavia too fast. If they are, we could have a colder first week of December. We finish up with the ECMWF on day 10 with a real mess. We've got a cold trough sinking into Scandinavia. We've got high pressure to the south of the UK. And we're trying to re-establish the westerlies. The upper air temperatures show much of Eastern Europe is looking cold, but the west is still generally in an Atlantic-driven flow. And I think that's how things are going to go for that opening week of December. Finally, just having a look at CFS V2 for next month. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first week period takes us from the 22nd through 28th of November. We have above average heights generally around to the north of the UK. Trough of low pressure down to the south. The flow is coming in something like that. So lots of quiet weather through the coming week, albeit eventually next week trending to more of an Atlantic influence. Week 2, 29th through to 5th of December, shows that we have a ridge out to the west, and probably bringing westerlies around the top of that, so it is a bit milder there as we're going into that week. Still largely settled, no sign of a really unsettled spell there, but more of an Atlantic influence to the air, so it implies a milder opening to December. And this looks really quite mild indeed, actually, as we go from the 6th through to 12th of December. We've got the high pressure above average heights to the south, trough of low pressure up to the northeast and in the Atlantic. So I think the jet stream there doing something like that. We are placed on the mild side of the jet there, and that could be a lot of dry weather, but fairly mild there through that first week or so of December. And then week 4, which is the 13th through to 19th of December, bit of a change. Heights are rising around Greenland. That ridge is weakening to the south of us, although it is still there to some degree across Spain. And this trough is deepening over Scandinavia. I think what's going to happen there, if it comes off like this, is that the ridge will pull out into this high pressure setting up over Greenland, with the trough strengthening over Scandinavia. That would turn the winds into the north. I think that's the way that's going, possibly producing a much colder middle part of December and then running up towards Christmas. So that's how the CFS is playing out in terms of going up towards the middle part of the month anyway. Remember, these charts do chop and change on a day-by-day basis, but that's the idea this morning. And talking of the CFS, we'll be doing the 11th Christmas update tonight on the Christmas updates page. That'll be around 7 o'clock. So, just to sum it all up, really, we're looking at a lot of dry weather through the rest of November. I think we go through to the start of December, and we're probably hinting going to a milder, more Atlantic period early on in the month, then maybe something colder further on. We shall wait and see. Come back later on for Christmas update. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.